What is going on, guys? It's Wraith back with another video. Now in today's video I'm basically going to be talking about what actually is the aspects behind a pro player and what actually makes a pro player, because there's tons of people who are very good at this game and absolute gods. Yeah, they're not really a pro player and they're not that much on that level. Like, they're just missing a thing or two, or they're not right there where they are. Now, so basically I have 5 kind of reasons to what actually makes a pro, and now most of these pros will have all 5 of these and be absolutely unreal at all 5. Most of them will only have like 4 out of 5, but most of them do have all 5 out of 5 because that's what actually makes them a pro. They're kind of a 5 quality pro player, I guess you could say, because if you only have 3 out of the 5, then you're not going to be as good as these players, right? So basically the first thing I'm going to talk about is mechanical skill. Now I talk about this in almost every video on how to improve, and mechanical skill is something that you actually do physically. For example, you're building, you gotta put hours into your building, you gotta be learning how to build. It's certain mouse buttons, so you gotta figure out when to flick your mouse or flick your joysticks on your controller, etc, etc. Same with your aiming, same with your editing. Now most people will be pretty average or pretty good at aiming, building, or editing, right? Very rarely do you find someone who has all 3. And even if they have all 3, they're very smooth with it, but they may not be at a pro level. So for example, their aiming, it might be very good. They probably grinded hours in Kovacs or hours in aim trainers. And same with building. Their building might be very exceptional, like they can build against most players. They have all the new kind of techniques. Their editing is super clean, like they've been working hours on editing. But those pro players are just a little bit better in every single thing. They've put more time in, they're a little bit more naturally gifted. They're just a little bit better than all those players mechanically, right? But one thing you can kind of do to help improve your mechanical is, like I say every single video about improving, is just go in creative, grind. Try practicing your aiming, try practicing your editing, try practice building. Now, obviously it comes to exceptions, but you kind of want to have all 3. For example, like Nick Merckx, his biggest fault was his building. Out of everything, like, he had extremely good aim, extremely good IQ, but his building was just not at a pro level or even close to pro level. I'd say it's under average, honestly. And he's been working on it. Still probably average, but since his other things are honestly higher than most pros, it kind of allows him to make up for it, right? But for most pro players, you want to have kind of all 3 mechanical techniques, right? You can't just have one and expect to be an absolute god. You kind of need to have all 3. Now the second thing I kind of want to talk about is pressure situations. Now basically what pressure situations means is being able to perform under pressure or even in a big game. So for example, the biggest example I can come up with is Tfue qualifying for the World Cup with 200,000 people watching him, right? So can you imagine actually being in that scenario where you have 200,000 people watching, and you know that if you clutch up this game, you're going to a tournament worth $50,000 to $3 million, and if you fail, 200,000 people is going to watch you fail, right? So you kind of got to think about that and be like, oh my god, would I choke, or would I get nervous, or would my hand be shaking? Most pro players don't get nervous anymore. They obviously get nervous before games and during the fight, but they still have such a calm sense of coolness that no matter what happens, they keep their calm and they know what to do. They don't fray under pressure. You see the best players in the world just don't fray under pressure. Ghost Bizzle will be at a 3v1, well 1v1v1v1 obviously, but he'll only have 12 health. He doesn't panic. He doesn't. His arm doesn't start shaking. He's like, oh my god, I don't know what to do. He sticks with it. He's like, I've played this game long enough. I know what to do. Even if there's thousands of people watching him play, they just don't think about that. For example, Tfue, he probably wasn't thinking about the 200,000 people watching him. He's probably thinking about, okay, I know I can do this. I'm one of the best players in the world. I'm gonna win this. It doesn't matter, right? So you kind of gotta be able to work under pressure. And even, for example, players like Tfue or Coxie, again, perfect example. When they won that $500,000 tournament, it was in real life, right? So tons of people were watching them play right there in that building. They had to perform, or else you can't really be an Unreal Pro player and not perform well under pressure, right? It's a very important aspect. If you just get nervous endgame, or you get nervous when even 5 people are watching you on Twitch, definitely not a good thing, right? You want to learn how to keep your calm, keep your coolness, and actually be like, okay, I know what to do. I've been playing this game long enough. I'm good at this. Now the next thing, and this is kind of debatable, but innovation. Now, the reason I think that a lot of pro players tend to innovate or kind of piggyback on innovation is any new building or editing or IQ play that comes out, you'll see a lot of pro players kind of adapt into their gameplay or even come up with it, right? So for example, I always like using this example for like IQ plays. I don't know if Savage came up with it, if he found it by someone, but the one where you put down the turret when someone has a ramp and they're not allowed to place anything, and then basically you can just pump them, right? Or whatever. Or another play where, for example, someone places a ramp and you're outside of their build, you take the wall, break down the ramp and place a pyramid so they can't build, right? It's just those quick, innovative thinking and 200 IQ plays that they do so consistently. For example, Savage and Poach are the best ones. They're always coming up with new moves, and even if they're not coming up with it, they're always looking on Reddit or looking on YouTube for these brand new plays and brand new moves that they can adapt into their game, right? Now, some players might not be as flashy in them and might not use the most creative like building techniques or something, but most players, like the top of the top, almost all use the new innovative strats, right? The quickest 90s that they think are the quickest, the smart plays to do when someone's in a box or when you're in a box, right? They're kind of thinking always of new plays to do that can give them an higher advantage, or if they're not thinking about it, they're looking for other people who have found it so they can adapt it into their game, right? Now this one's probably the biggest one, and this is consistency, right? So basically, kind of ties into pressure, but the consistent players are what makes them pros, right? If you, for example, do unbelievable, make it to the World Cup, do not very good in the World Cup and finish 500 for the rest of the World Cups, you're probably not at a pro level, right? You got to be consistent. You got to be making top of the top tournaments every single time. You can't be like, for example, Mongrel, obviously there's times where it might not always be that case. Like for example, you get screwed by RNG a couple games, you can get unlucky. Like for example, Mongrel's still one of the best players. He hasn't been consistent in the last two World Cups, but he's normally pretty consistent, right? You'll see him finish very high, probably more than anyone besides Bizzle, Tfue, and Benji, right? And then there's this new guy, Dubs FN, who I don't know if he's new, but I've never heard of him before this. He qualified twice in a row for the solo World Cup, right? Obviously the second one won't count, but that's just incredible to show how consistent he is and how like good he actually is at the game. Because if you can qualify and finish top 6 2 weeks in a row, comparable to everyone else in the world, no matter what with RNG, no matter what happens, to be able to do that twice just proves how technically consistent he can be, right? So pros are actually really good at consistently finishing, and what makes pros is they don't fail under pressure and they're consistent. They don't drop off randomly, or they don't all of a sudden win 3 tournaments in a row, drop off for a month, right? What makes a pro is actually consistency. Now the last thing I'm going to be talking about, and again this kind of ties in with innovation, is IQ. They know, and this is more IQ in game sense, so it kind of ties into mechanical and innovation, but they always know the right play to do. For example, and also you can actually tie in unpredictability, right? So for example, if you ramp over someone, like I always say for an example, most people cut it in half and try and pump you, right? So for example, a pro player will, instead of cutting it in half, will drop down, flip his ramp around, connect it down to you, and try and pump. Or will keep building the height and then edit down when you're least expecting it and pump you, right? So their game sense and unpredictability is just off the charts, right? Most people will just play the game and they'll have good mechanic skills, pretty good IQ, but they won't do those plays that are unpredictable or be able to handle 1v4 situations and come out of it alive like most pro players do. They just, everything, like their IQ and knowing where everything is, knowing what to do in what scenario is just off the charts, right? That's what makes them so good. So obviously, like I said at the start of this video, most pro players will have all kind of 5 of these. Now some of them may lack a little bit for mechanical skills, or they have a little bit less IQ, but normally for those players, something else makes them that good. For example, if they're not the best game sense, they normally have unbelievable mechanical skills. Like I said in Nick Merckx, if he's only has aiming and aiming as his good skill, but he's not the greatest at building and editing, his aiming and IQ kind of take over, right? But most players, and the best players, you'll see Mongrel, Savage, Tfue, have all 5 of those on those lists, right? That's what makes them the best of the best, is they have all 5 things that actually make them pro players. So obviously there's tons of things you can kind of work on to improve all that stuff. I made tons of videos, so make sure you check out my channel. But yeah, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you smash the like button, comment what I can do for a future video or anything about this video, and make sure you hit that subscribe button. So see you guys, and have a good day. Bye.